He's called it Modi's war. In Trump's protective shadow, Pete Navarro, the man you just saw, thinks he's a cowboy. But India is a country of peace, so rather than hit him back in the juvenile sort of kindergarten cowboy language he uses, let's tackle Pete Navarro tonight with facts, shall we? Let's check the maths on his three big claims, and then you can decide. Pete Navarro, who is one of Trump's chief advisors, says India is funding the Ukraine war by buying Russian oil. That this is Modi's war. He's actually used that phrase. He says if India stops, the war stops. He also says straight up India is the main culprit while others are blameless. Sit back for the next couple of minutes as I fire back with data and facts. No rhetoric, I promise. Allegation number one by Pete Navarro, India funds the Ukraine war. Let's start with Russia's oil export revenues, viewer. In 2024, Russia earned about $189 billion from oil and petroleum exports. India's average Russian crude intake in 2024 ran near 1.7 million barrels per day out of roughly 7.6 million barrels per day that Russia exported that year. Stay with me. I promise you it will be very clear. That is about 22 to 23% of total volume. Now, apply that share to the $189 billion oil export pot, and you get a rough upper bound of about $41 to $43 billion, potentially tied to Indian purchases. Potentially. Now, translate export sales into what actually reaches the Kremlin budget. Oil and gas brought about $108 billion into the federal budget in 2024, roughly a quarter of total federal revenue. Prorating by India's volume share puts India's contribution to Russia's budget at around $24 billion in 2024. Now, Russia's military spending in 2024 was about $149 billion, even on generous assumptions. And I'm taking the upper band of everything here. India's oil buys line up with a fraction of that number, nowhere close to funding the war. Allegation number two by Pete Navarro, stop India and the Ukraine war ends. If India were the tap that keeps the war flowing, Russia's war cash would track Indian barrels, wouldn't it? It does not. In June and July 2025, viewer, Russia's oil and gas budget revenue fell around 1/3 year on year as prices softened and the ruble strengthened, even though India was still buying. Meanwhile, the Ural's price averaged about $60 to $65 in recent months, sitting at a discount to Brent. Lower prices and discounts hurt Moscow's take per barrel, regardless of who actually buys the oil. Did you know that? The data shows Russia's oil and gas income is volatile and price-driven, not India-dependent. Also, global crude prices could more than triple to around $200 a barrel if India, the world's third largest oil consumer and importer, stops buying oil from Russia. Nobody will tell you that. Is that what Navarro wants for a tripling of global crude prices? And allegation number three by this cowboy is that India is the main driver of what's going on. Well, since this invasion, China's purchase of Russian crude and products have been larger in value terms than India's by a big multiple. If the road to peace runs through buyers by size, it has to run through China long before it runs through India, and yet China is not being sanctioned the same way India is. Add another uncomfortable fact for Mr. Navarro. Western economies have imported refined fuels from India that were partly made from Russian crude. In one documented slice, the United States bought about 1.2 billion euros of such products from India. So singling out India while ignoring bigger or parallel flows actually distorts the picture and is actually a brazen hypocrisy. Pete Navarro's misinformed, dangerously dishonest attacks on India are actually almost satirical, but it doesn't matter. The maths is economic. India's imports are sizable, but they are neither the majority of Russia's oil exports nor the master switch for Kremlin's finances. Revenue is driven by global price, discounts, taxes, and China's even bigger intake of Russian oil. It is also shaped by sanctions enforcement that has increasingly pushed Russia to sell at lower netbacks. The claim that stop India and the war stops tomorrow fails a very simple calculator test that I've just scratched the surface of here tonight. But does this even matter to the post-fact world of Trump and the attack dogs that he has unleashed? Somehow, I very much doubt it.